take a simple salad or a sandwich and make it extra special with some edible flowers. In this video, I want to share some ideas on things that you can make with edible flowers that might be growing around you in late spring, early summer. So wherever that kind of weather is around you, this video is going to give you a ton of different ideas, recipes, things that you can make with flowers that are going to be in bloom around that time. So whether you grow them yourself or you buy from a local farmer, you're going to have lots of ideas at the end of this video. Hey, I'm Nadia and I love edible flowers. They are one of my favorite things to grow. Besides the staples, things that really feed your family. Edible flowers are probably my favorite thing to grow because with such a simple, small, seemingly insignificant thing, it can make a dish so extra special. So whether you're making something for yourself or whether you're feeding your family or entertaining friends and family, just adding some edible flowers to a dish can make a world of difference. It's June right now when I'm filming this and I'm in southern Canada. It's probably a month and a half after kind of our last frost. So we're about a month or so into our spring. So I'm going to talk specifically about garden flowers that I have in my garden right now, just because I want to be able to show you in this video. But over on my blog, I'll have a link to my blog post down below. I'm going to have a ton of other recipes that use edible flowers that you can get for inspiration as well. So they're either going to be recipes that I have or recipes from other bloggers. So other bloggers, other chefs, other foodies who all wanted to collaborate and share with you some really amazing edible flower recipes. So the link is down below if you want more beyond this video, but I think you're going to get a ton of ideas and inspiration just from what I show you in this video today. So the first edible flower that I want to share is chive blossoms. And chive blossoms actually grow at the top of the chive plant. So many of us know chives. They're the green, kind of mini little green onion type of herb, super easy to grow. Maybe about a month and a half to 2 months maybe after they first come out of the ground in the spring, and they're super early. I did a whole video on really early spring herbs, and this is one of them. This is probably the first herb to pop out of my spring and pop out of my soil in spring. But a month and a half or so after that, you're gonna start to see these purple, beautiful blooms at the top of the plant. Now, you can eat them. They're completely edible. I wouldn't necessarily say pop a whole chive blossom in your mouth. It's a little bit strong. It's really oniony kind of flavor. But if you take the little florets off, then you can garnish a ton of different dishes with them. So I like to put chive blossoms on things like potato salad or anything where you would normally put chives. Chive blossoms will work. It's just a different variation of the chive flavor. So I have a potato dish that I made here, super boring looking, but if you chop up a couple of chives and chive blossoms and you sprinkle them on top, you can see how different this dish looks. So that's a really nice way to use chive blossoms. You can also sprinkle them on a sandwich. They're quite a beautiful flower, and even the individual little floret, it's quite nice actually. And then another really nice thing to do with chive blossoms is to make a vinegar. So I'm going through these obviously really high level, but if you want a chive vinegar recipe, I'm sure there's tons of them out on Google. I just want to kind of run through these so you have some ideas on different things that you can make with all the edible flowers. So as far as herb vinegars go, really what you want to do, chive blossom or any herb really, is you take some of the herbs and you put it in with vinegar and you leave it for weeks really. And then you strain it out and you have a vinegar. And I like to do this some point in the summer for sure. If I haven't done it by the fall, I make sure I do it by the fall because I love using herb vinegars throughout the winter. Such a nice addition to a winter dish when you just don't have fresh herbs available. So those are 3 really nice things that you can do with chive blossoms. The next flower I want to share is pinks, and pinks can look very differently. This might not be what you're thinking of if you have pinks in your garden or if you've seen them. They almost look like fans, each of the petals is a fan almost. This is the variety that I have. And these are really nice. Obviously they're pink, which is really cool. My daughter loves them. You can eat them. You can eat actually the whole flower, but like the chive blossoms, they're nicer if you pick off the individual florets. I find this variety for sure is nicer to pick off the individual florets. And really when we're talking any edible flower, it's sometimes the part where they all join in at the bottom, the stem, right above the stem, that part can be bitter. And you don't want your edible flowers to be bitter, really, because then people probably will just turn their nose at them. You want them to at least have no flavor or a really mild flavor. And all of them that I'm sharing with you today, as long as you follow the tips that I'm suggesting, don't have any bitterness to them whatsoever. And some of the things that I like to do with pinks are put them in ice cubes. So edible flowers in ice cubes are gorgeous. Just one tip, if you are making ice cubes and you want them to be crystal clear, you either want to use distilled water or reverse osmosis. You don't want to use anything that has any sort of minerals, so like tap water. Even some filtered water doesn't filter out all the minerals enough, and it can leave it a little bit cloudy. So when you're making ice cubes and you want them to be crystal clear, especially when you want to see what's inside, in this case a flower, then just use either reverse osmosis or distilled water. Pinks are also, because they're pink, beautiful on cupcakes. So if you think about, just prettying up some cupcakes, whether you're doing it for a kid's birthday or you just want a nice special cupcake because it's Tuesday, then pinks are going to be really, really pretty decoration on the top of the cupcake. And then of course you can mix and match with any of the other flowers that I'm talking about today as well. And then you could throw it on even like an appetizer. So I have these little crostinis. I made an artichoke spread, and then, it's fine looking, but you throw some pinks on top or a tiny little bit. You could do chive blossoms here as well, and it just really amps up the presentation and just makes it feel a little bit extra special for you. The next edible flower that you might not think about, and I certainly didn't think about just until earlier this year, are kale flowers, or really any brassica flower. So I let this kale plant go to seed. It was actually one that I planted last year, and it overwintered in my garden. So it stayed alive throughout the entire winter, and it came back this spring, and I was eating some tiny little baby kale leaves really, really early in the spring. So that's one thing I love to do. But what happens is when you let a plant like this overwinter, then early on in the summer or late spring, it will start to go to seed, because that's just the nature of how these plants work. So it's trying to set seeds, and the first thing it does before it sets seeds is it creates flowers. And I was just gonna let it do that, and then my daughter comes along, my 4-year-old daughter, and she says, "Mommy, can I eat those flowers?" Because we were walking around and eating all the flowers in the garden. Super fun for kids, right? With the kale and brassica flowers, my daughter said, "Can we eat these?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead and eat it. I know you can eat them." And she's just sitting there and munching on the flowers, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, let me try one of those, because she has to like it somewhat if she's just going to keep eating them. And I ate it, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's a really mild kind of broccoli, kale sort of taste to it, and a little bit floral. I mean, it's flower, right? So it has almost a little bit of a floral taste to it. They're not the most stunning flower, but it's a flower you can eat, and when you garnish it with something, it's pretty amazing. So I had to throw this one in there. For one, just eat it in the garden, right? I'm letting this plant go to seed, so the plant's just sitting there. I don't need all of those flowers. So just snacking on them in the garden is so much fun. But then of course, anywhere where you would want that taste of kale, or whether you'd want that taste of broccoli, like in a salad, perfect opportunity to garnish it or just add it as an extra additional flavor to the salad. The next flower I have to talk about for sure are pansies, and pansies are a early spring, they will last. They're a cool weather plant, right? Pansies are one of the first flowers that you see in your garden in the spring. Oftentimes they're sold in garden centers. If you're going to eat them and you just bought them from the garden center, just ask them if they've sprayed them, because sometimes they don't know. They're not being sold for edible consumption when they're coming straight from a garden center like that. So they don't have to necessarily follow all the same rules. So just ask them if they've sprayed it. If they have, I wouldn't eat those, or at least wait until those blooms have died back and new blooms grow. So I wouldn't eat any blooms that are already growing if you do decide to go that route. I prefer to grow these myself if I'm going to grow them, if I'm going to eat them, just so I know exactly what's in them. But pansies and violas, Johnny jump ups, any of that kind of, I don't know if they're in the same family or not, but that kind of flower, those are all delicious, and they make stunning garnishes. Anything that you want to really amp up the presentation factor. You can make quite a beautiful salad out of it. Anywhere you want to garnish a dish, These would also look really beautiful in those in the ice cubes, the same way that we did with the pinks. But in this case, if you can fit the whole flower in, keep the whole flower as the ice cube. That would be really beautiful. Now, if you are gonna garnish it with the whole flower, try to pick off as much of the stem as possible. I don't particularly enjoy the flavor of the stem. In fact, I usually pick off the petals as I eat it. But if you do want to present it with the whole flower, then just try to take off as much of that you can, just so it takes away any of that bitterness that might be at the base of the flower. And then there are arugula flowers, another wonderful surprise. Now this one I did know about before this year, but I was pleasantly surprised when I learned about arugula flowers. They are delicious. I actually almost look forward to them more than I do arugula. It's crazy. But they taste very much like arugula. So if you like the taste of it, and they're actually even more mild than arugula leaves themselves. They're more like a baby arugula. They are great just snacking right in the garden. That is probably how I eat it most of the time. But again, anywhere you would add arugula is a perfect candidate for arugula flowers. So anywhere you would, maybe put it on a sandwich, an open-faced sandwich. I eat like that. My Scandinavian heritage, I typically eat open-faced sandwiches. Sprinkling them on top is a beautiful way to present this kind of flower. Or like I said, you can just snack on them in the garden. That is probably my favorite way to eat this flower. There are so many other flowers that I could have talked about in this video besides what I did. I could probably do a video like this every single month until fall and not hit them all. So if you head on over to my blog, I will have a list of a bunch of other edible flower recipes that you can use for inspiration, as well as a list of all the ones that I talked about today. And if you want to grow your own edible flowers, I put together a video not too long ago about designing a small urban edible flower garden, so you can get lots of ideas on how you can actually grow some of these edible flowers in your own garden. So I'll have a link to that as well in the description, as well as my blog post, where I'll have a link to all the different recipes that you can make with edible flowers. And I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. That have really amazing, sorry, my freezer decided to be loud.